I'm going to recognize Representative Godfrey, followed by Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In one of those wonderful coincidences that happens now and again in this business, I'm a subscriber to Consumer Reports, and I used it for everything from beds and furniture to pots and pans because they use data, they do testing. And coincidentally, the cover story this month is their guide to popular supplements, which is about which ones work, which ones don't, and which can be dangerous. And in that story, there are 4 supplements to avoid. One of them is kratom. The FDA has said, I'm going to look it up here and quote the story, if I may. Issued a warning that people shouldn't take kratom. Side effects can include agitation, confusion, hypertension, and in the case of overdose, seizures and coma. I'm very happy to vote yes on this proposal. This is a drug, even if it is, grown, even if it is a plant-based, that should not be available. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Fishbein, followed by Senator Austin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give some credit to Representative Callahan, our colleague in the House. The record doesn't reflect, but if one looks into the system, in 2021, House Bill 6539 was unanimously approved by the House. And the genesis of that bill was actually a bill out of the Judiciary Committee having to do with alcohol education programs. And on June 7, a couple days before the session was to end on June 9, Representative Callahan, who was a freshman that year, came to me and said, we've got this problem with this substance called kratom, and I had never heard of it before. And he said, I'd like to get something done. We need to look at this. And we actually took that bill and we converted it to a study on kratom. So I just, that's essentially where this started. I wanted to give some credit to Representative Callahan because perhaps we wouldn't be here today without that. That bill didn't end up getting called in the Senate, but it did unanimously come out of the House. And I would like to think that was the genesis for what we have here today. So I am in support of what is before us based upon all of the comments that I've heard from my colleagues here this morning. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Fishbein. Senator Austin, followed by my ranking member, Mary Wielander.
I have a couple questions for the agency.
Somebody could step forward, introduce yourselves, turn on your mic, and then answer the good senator's questions.
I'm finding it almost impossible to do 2 meetings at the same time. I apologize. So my first I have a couple of questions. So my first question is, how many people have been found to have died from kratom by the Connecticut's medical examiner?
Good morning. Again, for the record, my name is Caitlin Anderson. I'm the Chief of Legal and Regulatory Affairs for the Department of Consumer Protection, and I am joined by our Director of Drug Control, Troy Ruff. We can both tag team your questions if that's acceptable to the committee. Okay. So for the question on how many individuals we have found through the medical examiner office, I'm going to defer to Director Ruff.
So with that,
you have to identify yourself for the record. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Troy Ruff.
I know she did, but you do too.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Troy Ruff. I'm the director of Connecticut State Drug Control Division. So with that, some of the data that we are currently receiving from the OCME office, direct link to mitragynine and or 7-hydroxymitragynine. That data that we have on that is limited. It's usually combined with other types of drugs or opioids or other benzodiazepines that we have. The last piece that I had was about 9, recently was over 9 deaths.
And,
combined, but nothing specifically.
but not related to kratom, the plant-based kratom, different than the the synthetic kratom.
So when they do the testing on it, it comes up as mitragynine is the testing that we got from OCME,
Which is
specifically, which is kratom,
the
the leaf.
synthetic kratom or kratom, the plant-based kratom.
It is,
I find that I know more about this than I ever intended to know about this, and never really wanted to intend to know about this.
right. So basically, kratom is a plant, is a plant,
Yep.
right? And in that, they have the alkaloids of mitragynine, and there is 7-hydroxymitragynine that's in it. 7-hydroxymitragynine, it's a small amount in the kratom plant, but it's mostly 7-OH is more of the synthetic piece that's out there. That's
Right.
okay.
And I have no problem with that piece being a Schedule 1 component of things. I have a little problem with the plant-based. And when I look at the plant-based numbers, and that's what I really want, I want to know the plant-based numbers, just plant-based, not combination with everything else that's out there. That's the same conversation that we used to have with marijuana when marijuana was laced with fentanyl or laced with any of the other synthetic drugs that are out there. That's why we had recreational marijuana be regulated so that we knew what was in the plant itself. And so I'm curious, do they break it out so that we can see it's because the plant itself is laced with synthetic components, or is it the plant itself?
So the data we get for the Office of Chief Medical Examiners, it specifically says mitragynine. It does not break it out to 7-OH with the stuff that the data
Have
that
we asked them to break that out at all?
I haven't received any of that information yet. I was hoping to have it before this meeting today, just to see that. A lot of our labs are unable to test for mitragynine. Some of the Department of Ag lab that we use down in New Haven, and even some of the other labs that we use within our state to do plant-based products don't have the ability to actually test for it.
So we've had a practice in the General Assembly of looking at a lot of plant-based drugs, like plant-based components of things. Maybe drugs is not the correct term. So psilocybin, for example, we've now allowed, because we've found that there were actual benefits from psilocybin, a mushroom, to treating post-traumatic stress and some other components. We found that, so far, we have found that marijuana is not as dangerous as it once was thought, although we're now trying to combine marijuana with hemp and saying hemp is just like marijuana when it's not. And we are looking at a lot of these things, and I appreciate what Senator Kissel talked about. So Senator Kissel talked about looking at things and starting at a lower level and working the way up. So the federal government chose not to put kratom. They did put 7 blah, blah, blah kratom on the Schedule 1, but they did not put kratom, the plant, on that. What was the reasoning, if you knew why the federal government decided not to do that?
Just to clarify the question, are you asking why there's 2 agencies involved, right? You got the Food Drug Administration, which does the safety and efficacy of drugs. They supply that data to the Drug Enforcement Administration, who then goes through the piece and like links them through it on it. So FDA has said there is no medical use for kratom and 7-OH. They said that. DEA, I think it was 2016.
Well, in July of 2025, they began the process to schedule 7-OH as a Schedule 1 drug. While that process is continuing, to date, the FDA still has no approved medical use for the kratom plant. So,
but they also haven't decided to make it a Schedule 1 drug.
Not made that recommendation to the DEA yet. No.
That's what I'm focusing in on, is that they haven't. I mean, there are people that take, they take natural drugs, natural plants, and they say it impacts them in X way, but the federal government has not, and in particular for any Eastern kind of usage of plant-based issues like kratom. When I was stationed in Japan, marijuana grew on the side of the roads. They told us not to get it at all or pick it up because we would lose our top secret clearances, but it grew all over the place and was available to the people who lived who were residents and citizens of Japan. So I just think that sometimes we over project our opinions on some things, and I'm concerned about that. As Senator Kissel talked about, our neighbors are not doing this. It seems like we'll be an island again in over regulation of this issue. And I also read Kevin Rennie's article, who equated kratom to fentanyl. Is kratom, the plant, equated in your mind to fentanyl? Is it just like fentanyl? Is that what's going on here?
It does work on the mu receptors, which is like the opioids do.
Right. Is it fentanyl?
It's not fentanyl as the chemical.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's not
That's what I'm
fentanyl, the
asking.
chemical.
So, I'm just concerned that where we are on this issue, because we're going to come up with rules and regulations for kratom, saying there's no medical uses from it, but I can't be alone in getting the several thousand emails, and many of them from people within the confines of my district. So when I talked to the Department of Consumer Protection, they said they were all out of state, but they were not out of state that I received. They were from within the confines of my district in particular, not just Connecticut, but my district in particular. So I'm trying to figure out people who say that they have, because we've done so much on pain management, right? So pain management is something that a lot of people talked about kratom being used for. Kratom the plant, not kratom the synthetic, but kratom the plant, saying that they were finding relief that they had not found, and it stopped them from some of the opioid drugs, synthetic drugs above and beyond the poppy plant that were addictive. And they hadn't found that kratom was addictive, and they were able to be more useful people by managing their pain without overusage. Have we gotten to a point where pain management is not of an issue anymore, or we don't care about that issue because it's really hard for some people to control pain under our current
Senator,
regulations?
if I could
He's gonna
just,
answer that.
if I could just ask you to just keep it on
Yep.
to the reg that's before us, so
Yep.
that I can't guarantee that they have the expert
does.
on all of our questions, but if they're related to the regs,
Yeah,
and you
he-
can answer, please go ahead.
Thank you. And Senator Austin, thank you for the question. So in considering how to classify the regulation, as we were required to do by Public Act 25101, we
Get it?
had to look at the approved medical uses from the FDA. And as of today, the FDA still has listed no approved medical use for kratom or 7-OH, including for pain management. Therefore, turning to the rules required for each schedule classification, we were constrained to pick Schedule 1 because Schedule 1 is the only schedule that says there's no approved medical use for the substance.
So we have no other choice than to go to the top one. We can't go to any of the other schedules. That's what our rules are indicating.
Correct. And I would refer to the committee to the extent they're interested in any further research.
I am.
So that would be federal law specifically.
If you could send that to me also, because I would like to read more than the sentence or two you're going to be.
21 USC Section 812 establishes all 5 schedules and the requirements for putting substances into each schedule. And schedules 2 through 5 all list a current accepted medical use, which we do not have here for kratom because the FDA has not yet established an approved medical use. That left Schedule 1, which under subsection B states that the drug or other substance has no currently accepted medical use. Therefore, we were constrained to pick Schedule 1. But I do note that the regulation before you also contains a reclassification provision in subsection G to the extent that there is, a change at the federal level and a federal classification, Connecticut will automatically update to adopt the federal reclassification. So because we're having this conversation today, it does not preclude it from changing in the future should there be federal updates.
So if the federal government comes to a decision relative to the use of kratom, the plant, not kratom, the synthetic, then our regulations would automatically get updated. Is that true of all of the Schedule 1 substances?
Yes, subsection G begins for any Schedule 1 controlled substance of our regulation.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Wieelander, followed by Senator Summers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. Thank you for being here today. I know that we all have gotten a lot of conversation and communication on this, and I appreciate you being here to answer our questions. I have a lot of concerns about this substance being such an available product in a completely unregulated form. And I just was hoping, could you clarify that right now, because it's a rather newer substance in the marketplace, that we don't have testing that can actually differentiate clearly between synthetic and natural?
That is correct. As Director Ruff just commented, we did call our state laboratories and they are unable to test for differentiation between the two forms at this point in time.
So there's a just very strong possibility, even almost a guaranteed likelihood, that people who are using something that they think is actually the natural version is potentially much stronger than they intended it.
That is correct. And to further that point, Representative, because the FDA has not approved any use for this, there's currently no rules or regulations concerning packaging, disclosure of amounts in each package, product size, age gating. None of that is yet regulated at the federal and therefore not at the state level either.
I have to say, that's actually a terrifying statement to hear. So knowing that you can walk into a gas station and get this as a tea, but also a bottled drink at the same time, not knowing if it's of a intense concentration, especially when it comes to our kids. So, and because this has been unregulated and available, there is a strong possibility that there are going to be residents of Connecticut that are going to have a very hard time with this. Could you, I know it's been explained to me, but if you could explain for the benefit of everyone, what the plan is for when this comes off the market?
Sure, thank you. And that's a good question because we do acknowledge that there will be people impacted by this decision and we are not callous to that. We have reached out to our counterparts at the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services who have information and data available to promote and roll out for individuals who might need additional assistance in dealing with this decision today. And we do note that because it would be a Class 1 controlled substance, selling it and otherwise distributing it would be considered a criminal penalty.
Thank you. So there are resources for people if they're having a hard time not being able to ingest it.
Yes.
Great, that's good to know. And also for the future, if we choose to put in resources for this, this is something that the state could potentially develop the testing for and see if we can downgrade one of the versions of it.
The department would be willing to have those discussions if that's the policy decision that the legislature would like to pursue. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your answers
Thank you.
and the thoughtfulness in which this has been presented. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Summers, followed by Senator Ciccarella.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I I wanted to just say a few things from a public health perspective, being a former chair and ranking on public health now for 10 years. I'm super concerned about this product. I did not know much about this product until about a year ago when I was contacted by a constituent whose son became addicted to this, trying to get off of opiates. And it's widely known as gasoline heroin. That's what everybody knows it as. I actually went to a bunch of gas stations to try to see if I could buy it myself, just to see what it was about. And it comes in different forms. It's highly addictive. And if I've read many studies, I just read one from the Harvard Medical School talking about that at least 13% of the people that are taking it become addicted to it. And I want to be clear that in 2016, the DEA did propose listing kratom as a Schedule I drug. However, it was quickly removed because of the pressure from constituents and legislators to remove it from that schedule. I am happy to support this today. It can be revisited, as we have heard from the agency. But I just wanted to list a few countries in which this substance is banned. And we tend to kind of be behind the curve in many of the things. We were behind the curve on cell phones years ago. We were behind the curve in opiates. And now it appears that the United States is possibly behind the curve on this. But this product is banned in Australia, New Zealand, Israel, Japan, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, the Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, the UAE, Denmark, Finland. And I'll remind you that in some of these countries, other substances are legal. France, it's considered a controlled substance. Ireland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Romania, Russia, Sweden, it's also considered a controlled substance, Switzerland, and the UK. So other countries have also banned this. With all that we have seen in opiate addiction and the cost to not only individuals, to society, to grandparents, I think it is very smart of us to move forward with moving this to where it needs to be. And if we find something else out later on and we can distinguish between synthetic and natural from a tree leaf, then we can revisit it at that point in time. But I just wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to say that today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ciccarella, followed by Representative Rader. And if anybody else wants to comment after her, please let me know. Senator?
Thank you. And I'll be brief. I share the concerns of a lot of individuals that spoke on both sides of the issue. But as ranking member of general law and working with my colleagues on general law, we were presented with challenges the last 4 or 5 years. And you walk into pretty much any gas station or bodega, you're going to see a section where there's all different chemical compounds and synthetic types of drugs. And we were talking with advocacy groups that are worried about children and talking to law enforcement, talking to schools that were finding these products in the schools, not just kratom, but the other synthetic products like Delta 8, Delta 9. And the law enforcement was having a really hard time trying to figure out what they can and can't do. We talked about the testing capabilities to see if this is synthetic or if it's originally from the plant. And we are here today because the legislator unanimously passed legislation to have DCP regulate this so we can make sure that this can't get into the hands of the kids that we see having it in schools and being able to go right to the corner gas station, get it, use it, and we have no idea what it is. So I think this is important. I do believe that when other testing becomes available or we have ways to truly show that it is only this product, which in my research, just the leaf itself really is not that healthy. But, again, I'm far from a doctor, so I'll leave that to the professionals. But, this is definitely something that I believe needs to be addressed. Again, you walk right down the store, there's tons of products in there. And what is scary is children are able to get their hands on this. And it's not regulated. And I heard someone say before, We were worried about the marijuana on the black market, maybe being cut with something. So, it's one of the pros of legalizing this, that there's final form testing and making sure that it is safe for recreational use. There's none of that here. So regulating this is super important, and I urge my colleagues to support this and move this along. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Rader?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I'm so grateful for this really thoughtful conversation among all of us on this committee. I'm so grateful everyone's given so much thought and intent around this. Just a few things. I did have a pediatrician in my community reach out, and she actually filmed, to your point, Senator Chigwell, at some of these gas stations, these local gas stations, and the kratom infused beverages are right next to the energy drinks, right next to sodas. And so our kids can literally walk in, and they're not age gated right now. And so it's really concerning, I also had a constituent reach out who has a family member addicted to this substance, and really doesn't want us discerning between a natural leaf and a synthetic, because as we know, I've been working a lot with the AG's office on tobacco products, and right when you regulate one form of the product, they just come up with something just slightly different to kind of circumvent that regulation. And so I think it's really important that we take a holistic approach right now, at least, to creating a Schedule I designation for this substance. My last comment or question is for those representatives from DCP that are in the room today. I'm grateful to hear that there's going to be some work and intention around supporting those who might be addicted or users of this product, to lend them some support around pain management, addiction management, and other things. I'm curious about enforcement. I know that that's a really tough thing because, like I said, we ban one product or regulate one product, and these kind of subversive manufacturers just come up with another version. And so I'm curious about the enforcement once this is regulated, once it's registered as as we're hoping it will be, what that regulation, what that enforcement will look like. And how we can hope, what is the timeline for these products being pulled out of those refrigerators at the gas station and the other products?
Thank you for the question, Representative. Once the regulation becomes final through publication on the Secretary of the State's website, possession and sale of sale and distribution of these substances, and not just the kratom. I do want to take a moment to say that there are 7 total substances within our regulations. This would apply equally to all of them. But those substances, distribution and sale of those substances would be considered criminal, and it would be left largely to our local law enforcement. It is not regulated or enforced by DCP at that point. However, to your point, talking about discussions with vape shops and continuing education efforts, that is something where DCP has played a large role in working with our AG partners and working with local law enforcement in providing education and being a presence in local vape and tobacco shops. So that is something we will continue to do and continue to provide our knowledge and expertise to our local law enforcement partners who will be enforcing these regulations.
So there will be an education piece for local law enforcement, but you're saying DCP will not practice any sort of spot inspections or anything like that once this is changed?
That would be outside of our current authority.
Okay, good to know. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just have one specific question having to do with process, knowing that some of our smaller vendors may not be tuning in at 11:30 on a Tuesday to watch the late breaking news from this committee. What efforts are made to engage with the small, often independent providers who may not know that the landscape is going to change very quickly? I understand from working with your team and other enforcement issues what your authority is, but how do we avoid unintentionally capturing those who may not know the law changes? I understand that ignorance of the law is no excuse. However, surprises are unfair as well. So can you go into a little bit more detail as to what the education for the small business owners are going to look like?
Sure. Thank you for that question as well. We do understand that this is a bit of a different scenario and a different regulation than, license fees that we're usually advocating for. So we do actually have a press plan in place. to the extent the committee does pass this and we continue to promulgate the regulation, we will be ramping up our public outreach efforts. We can certainly consider doing targeted individualized emails to those of our credential holders who may be impacted to broaden the reach of our messaging. We will continue to reach out to our partners at the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services and also coordinate any type of public awareness messaging that needs to happen.
And I thank you for that. My concern is always the 18 or 19-year-old kid behind the counter who's working when an enforcement action does take place, when they have no control, authority, or knowledge as to what's being sold in the facility and they unintentionally get caught up in enforcement of this or anything else. So I know I'd love to see the outreach that the agency is going to do. This is important to me, getting Kratom out of the kids' hands, but I also want to be fair to the business owners. So I would just ask that I get a copy of whatever goes out.
We hear the concern and we appreciate it, and we also share it. So we will redouble our efforts to make sure the news is spread.
Thank you. Any more questions? Senator Hartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this education, quite frankly, on something that I had no idea about until my inbox started to really explode. Interestingly enough, though, and I got massive number of emails about this, most of which were unidentifiable senders. The ones that I could identify were actually the stories of constituents, not all in my district, a few were, who had terrible experiences with this and whose family members had been addicted, and many of whom had, some really downward spirals as a result of this when they started on it for a supposed medicinal kind of healing alternative. So your answers today have really helped to allay all my fears. The one thing I really want to reiterate is what Madam Chair was just talking about, and that there be enough notice given to these small vendors in particular. They're the ones who wear all the hats every day, aren't on top of all of these things. And so that the notice is given to them. Now, you talked about emails or whatever, to make sure that they are noticed appropriately so that they can get this off their shelves and they don't have unintended consequences here. I'm also comforted by the fact that within the guidance that there is that option should science tell us differently as we continue with the monitoring and testing of this. I mean, it wasn't very different what we did with medical marijuana for pediatric situations. That was not available. And then as the science continued to evolve, then we made those changes. So I think we're taking the prudent steps, and I'm quite frankly, not worried about those surrounding states that haven't done this yet, because this is a serious issue. And thank you, Madam Chair, for all of this dialogue, and to the committee and to the department for your work here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think we've gotten everybody. My last ask to the agency too, knowing that these are going to be small, in some cases, small shops, if you probably do this already, provide them guidance as to what to do with unsold products so that they know how to safely dispose of it. Seeing no other questions, comments, or otherwise, Madam Administrator, can you please call the roll?
For proposed regulation 2026-003 from the Department of Consumer Protection regarding controlled substance drug scheduling, where I'm entertaining a motion to accept the LCO recommendation of approval in whole with technical corrections. Representative Carpino. Senator Gadker-Wilcox.
Senator Gadker-Wilcox votes yes.
Senator Kissel.
Senator Kissel votes yes.
Representative Welander.
Representative Welander votes yes.
Representative Biggins.
Biggins votes yes.
Senator Ciccarella.
Senator Ciccarella votes yes.
Is kind of in agreement because the legislative body has an.
Representative Fishbein.
Representative Fishbein votes yes.
Representative Godfrey. Senator Hartley,
Senator Hartley, yes.
Representative Claire DeStitria,
Representative Claire DeStitria votes yes.
Representative McGorty,
Representative McGorty votes yes.
Senator Austin,
Senator Austin votes in the affirmative.
Representative Rader,
Representative Rader votes yes.
Senator Summers.
Summers votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on to the next regulation before us, 2026-004 from the Secretary of the State. The Uniform Commercial Code, Article 9, filing procedures.
have
Do
no
have a
idea
recommendation-
where it
sorry,
goes
Do I have a
next,
motion for the
Mike.
LCO recommendation of approval in whole with technical corrections?
So moved.
Senator Kissel, was that a second?
I tried to move it, but I'll go second.
Thank you. Moved by Representative Godfrey, seconded by Senator Kissel.